Hello again, everybody. My name is John D. Healy. I do a podcast. It's called It's Good to Talk. August and you, that means today. Be conjugal origum, that means I'll have a lot to talk about. People know me because I produced this book, my friend Tony McGurn, about his life story, and that's how it all started. His story goes back to 1941, where he was born in Leitrim in Ireland, and its story is up until recently, all through his life experiences down south during the civil rights and all that, and back to recently. My sponsors are Liffey Van Lines, a moving company here in New York City. And they've been around longer than the New York City Marathon, running very smoothly and all going well there. Always give a shout out to irishexaminerusa.com. You'll get all kinds of events coming up there. And I'm sure my guest today will be talking to Paddy McCarthy about his events that are coming up because he has a pop up Gaeltacht and we'll talk more about that. But let's get right to my guest, Daithí Mac Lochlainn, Tafalsharot. Daithí, you're welcome.
Good Margaret. How are you doing today? Great to speak with you.
Yeah, we'll be, so my listeners know, we'll be speaking like bilingual. So we'll speak a little bit in Gaelic and a little bit in English, and hopefully you'll be able to follow us along. So Daithí just asked me, how am I doing today? And I'm going to reply to him in Gaelic and tell him that Tome Gahan White, which means I'm very well. Goramagot, I'm very well. Goramagot, I'm very well. And Goramagot means thank you. So Daithí, you have a project called Pop-Up Gaeltacht, which is for people that want to have an interest in the Irish language and in particular want to learn a little bit of Gaelic, like just as a casual way of learning the language, okay?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've done this a few times already, but we're meeting on this Friday. That'll be the 24th of February at the Beer Keeper in Woodside, and so it starts at 2 o'clock. And people just come if you whatever Irish you have. If you have no Irish, we'll give you some Irish. We'll teach you a bit of Irish. If you're fluent, we have people that are from the Gaeltacht, and people just get together and we just speak in Irish
How often do these events?
when we have time to do them. Really,
Okay, well, I'll get your information at the end because
Okay,
our podcast will go out on March the 1st.
terrific.
Let's go back a little bit to Conra na Gaeilge is an organization that was founded in Ireland by Dr. Douglas Hyde.
Well,
Dr. Douglas.
okay, we're actually a branch of Conra Gaelga. So Conra Gaelga began in 1893. It was Douglas Hyde and Monsignor Growney and Owen O'Neill, and they founded the organization. It was really Douglas Hyde's work most of all, and it was a movement to revive the Irish language. There were other Irish language organizations, but this was a real movement to really start speaking it. And what's interesting is that prior to that, in 1872, there was a movement started in Brooklyn by Micheál O'Loughlin, who started teaching Irish. He wrote a letter in the Irish in the Irish World newspaper, and he began teaching courses in a Catholic school. It was Our Lady Victory School. And at one point, Douglas Hyde came and visited him, and he sat in one of his classes. And he went back to Ireland, and he started Conra na Gaeilge. Our branch was founded. We could say it was founded in 2016, but when we started the branch, we found out there was another branch in Brooklyn that was over 100 years ago, and it was not that we had the books from 1902 that there was a branch called the Brooklyn Gaelic Society, and it was founded by none other than Tom Clark and his wife Kathleen. So
Okay.
we named our branch the Cumann Cutleen Agus Homish O'Cleary, or the Kathleen and Tom Clark club. And so,
Okay. Well,
yes,
I'll just go back for a moment to talk a little bit about Douglas Hyde because I lived where Douglas Hyde is buried. He's buried in a little village called French Park in County Roscommon. I lived there for 5 years. His gravesite is there. There's a little museum there. The curator there is, her name will come to me in a moment, and you can visit the grave. It's a great tourist attraction for people visiting the gravesite, especially coming up to election time. So Douglas Hyde was an academic, he was a scholar, he was a poet, he was an artist. And I think I must get my resident history guy back, Brian Layden, to talk more, because Brian Layden will discuss Douglas Hyde. Douglas Hyde was able to bring Protestants and Catholics together, and he's buried in French Park County, Roscommon. I had an establishment there for 5 years. His grave is there. He was the first president of Ireland. What's creative about Douglas Hyde and the Irish language is that he had such a love and a graw for the Irish language that he wanted it to like recreate it, but not just for Irish people, but for Protestants and Catholics alike. And he had a lot of success in doing that. So it's a strong achievement for Douglas Hyde, first president of Ireland, to do that. So Conra na Gaeilge, so your organisation is somewhere down the road from Conra na Gaeilge. Would I be right in saying that?
Yes, we're actually a branch. We're part of Conra Gaelach.
Okay.
Each local Conra would have a branch, so we're a branch of Conra na Gaelach.
And as far as I know, I think
they're worldwide. I mean, of course, most of them are in Ireland, of course, north and south. But there's a branch in Berlin. There's a branch up in Albany. There's one in New Zealand, in Hong Kong, even. So they're all over.
Which is great as well, because it's. I know we'll never bring back the Irish language to a full live speaking language. The roots, of course, go back as far as Latin, So, but I think what you're doing and your organization is doing is great to give people a flavor. And the word in Irish for flavor is a blos. So, blos na Gaeilge, the flavor of the Irish language. Now, the name of your pop-up Gaeltacht is called Daithí Mac Lochlainn. Tell us about that.
Well, Daithí Mac Lochlainn simply means woodside. That's because we have Daithí na Gréine, which is sunny side, and it means the side of the sun, and Daithí Mac Lochlainn would be the side of the woods. So Daithí Mac Lochlainn is just the Irish word for woodside.
Okay, well, I'm glad I learned that today. Actually, my brain brought me back to way back, actually, because my brain goes out all which ways to the side of the hedge. So when the British shut down all the schools in Ireland to take away our education, to take away our language, the only place teachers could teach was out beside hedges, and that's where students had to learn the basic, mathematics and geography and a little bit of history, I assume. Most of the history was handed down. So Daithí Mac Lochlainn woodside, Daithí Mac Lochlainn could be beside the hedge for a school as well. So I like the name. It's brilliant. And I'm glad I made the mistake, which was a good mistake to make, Daithí Mac Lochlainn. So Sin Scéal, that means that's the story. So let's give our listeners a few phrases in Gaelic, okay?
Really?
Simple. Let's say
Cehilwiltu. Well, I would say Cehilwiltu. But another easier way to say it might be Conasatautu. People in Kerry and in Cork would say Conasatautu. I would say Cehilwiltu because I have a more conic dialect. But for people up in the north, up in Donegal, they say Kaje Maratatu. But probably Conasatautu is probably the easiest one for people to remember.
Conastatu is, it's like, how you doing? So how you doing, Conastatu? And your reply is, if you're feeling good, you say Tome go mai.
Tome go mai.
Yeah, if you're feeling good. And if you're feeling sad, you're going to say Tome Bronach.
Tome Bronach. I could say to brown autumn. To brown autumn means that there's sadness on me.
Sadness on me.
Yeah.
And then someone might reply back to you if they don't know. Maybe your dog died or something. And I'd say Daithí ta Bronart, which means your name Daithí. Ta Bronart, there's sadness on you. I'd say Cain Fall. Why? Why you sad? And then you say, oh, my madra, my dog, for Shabos, my dog died.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a conversation, okay? It's conversational Irish. If you're feeling well, you say talk to Gamai. If you're not feeling talk brown or him.
Cup and tail at the hill. Cup and tail at the hill.
Okay, so cup and tail.
Cup and coffee at the hill.
Well, at the hill means it's like please. Please is the word. And let the hell is please. So if you say If you walk into a bar and the bartender says, well, what would you like? You would say, well, Whitelum. I would like, but Whitelum.
Well, Pinta Guinness. Pinta Guinness.
Or, but Whitelum Pinta Guinness. I would like a pint of Guinness. And the bartender would serve it, and you would say, Gora Mahago, thank you. Thank you very much, okay? Okay, so they're simple phrases that anybody could use in everyday use out in Woodside. You walk into a store, K will to, how you doing today? Tame go mai. Be johagum, I'll have a drink. Jo tea, jo coffee. And if you're in the bar, of course, Pinta Guinness. Gora Mahagot, thank you. And then we will move on to maybe, like, let's talk about the weather is a typical one that people use, okay? Let's say, ta on Laga Bra, which means the weather is nice. The weather is nice. Ta on Laga Bra. Ta fe on Fuur.
Very
that
cold.
Means very cold. Okay, you got it. Okay, on Fuur, very cold. And then you can expand the weather conversation as well into, well, Irish people love talking about the weather anyway. So you can talk about the seasons maybe. So sauna is like Halloween, November time, summertime, springtime, Christmas time, and there's conversations you can build around those, okay? And then if you take where are you from?
Chaosu.
Where are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Conusahoni to where do you live? And you say Woodside again to Tiv Nakulya. Tiv Nakulya is Woodside. Tiv Nagrania, Sunnyside. Those are expressions that people can easily use in their day-to-day without having to have a total vocabulary. Or bloss is a word I like to use because bloss means a flavor. Just like when you're cooking, you give something a flavor. So you give it a bloss. Okay? So then people have a bloss na Gaelga. Okay? And then if you want to go back to poetry, like W.B. Yeats, when he said O'Leary is dead and gone, or the language he was meaning is dead and gone, it's with O'Leary in the grave. But the Irish language can be very romantic in its musical tones. Would you agree with that?
Oh, certainly, indeed, yes.
Okay, and the other thing about the Irish language is we have no curse words. We have no bad words.
No bad words at all.
No, not in the Irish language. Like nobody could call me and say, "John, you fucker" in Irish, because there's no language for it. There's no translation for it. But what we do have in the Irish language is we have a mollocht. You know what a mollocht is?
Sure, it's a curse. It comes from the Latin, which is malediction. So you got mallet, which is a malediction, and you have a bonnet, which is a benediction, which is a blessing. So we have greetings, which are bonacty, and we have curses, which are molocty. So.
Okay. Well, I would rather, believe me, I would rather a friend to call me a fucker than to give me a mollocht. The mollocht is more powerful than a derogative word, because the mollocht means like, oh, I hope your dog dies, I hope your cat drowns in a lake. So it's a wish of badness towards you, which is more rude, I suppose, in a way. Now, the banachty are the opposite, as you just said. The banachty are the opposite. That's like blessings. So if someone gives you a blessing, Australia, it's very sincere and from the heart. So let's expand on that. And if we go back to the Latin, I studied Latin for only a year, unfortunately, because it was taken off the curriculum at the time. But the basic roots of most languages go back to the Latin, and especially the Gaelic. And as you said, we have dialects in Ireland, like the Donegal dialect, the Mayo, the Galway, and the Kerry dialect. Okay, so in Donegal, a translation for a car, the word car, might be glúistín. Okay, glúistín, which means if you break the word down, like say, like in a German language, two parts of the word will give you the meaning of the word. So glúistín Glúist is like to
Motor
travel.
thing. The motor thing.
To travel. Yeah, and the motor. Like Volkswagen in German means the people's car.
People's car.
Volks, people's car, Volks. So we have a lot of words in Gaelic like that in the Irish language, which if you break the word down, you'll actually get the meaning, which is a lot of fun to do for new beginners that's studying Irish for the first time, to look at the word and say, let me see if I can solve that, like a crossword puzzle. And if you take the two, break the word down and say, well, I know that part of the word, I know that part of the word. Well, tá sé sin go hintach. Tá sé sin go hintach. That means that's
Wonderful.
excellent, wonderful. So you can see how we are interacting in conversation. Like if I say excellent for gohinta and you say wonderful, we know that gohinta is a good word. It's an uplifting word. You say wonderful, I say excellent. But we can communicate.
Yeah.
And there are so many languages in the world, and yet people can't communicate. That's a phrase from a song by Christy Moore. So let's give my listeners a few more phrases. So let's say you walk into a restaurant and you want to express that you're very hungry. How would you say that?
To ocrasorum. To ocrasorum. There's a hunger on me.
Hunger on you, okay. And if we think of hunger like the Great Hunger, which was the famine in Ireland, where I guess half our population died one way or the other. They either immigrated or they died by the roadside, especially in counties like Leitrim and probably Galway, Mayo, and maybe parts of Sligo as well. Famine was caused by the potato blight, where the potato crop failed because the stalks died from a disease called the blight, and that was the Great Hunger. The Great Hunger, okay. And there's other Irish words to express the Great Hunger. So let's give my listeners some more phrases today. We won't overpower them because I want to come back and ask you where your Daithí Mac Lochlainn pop-up Gaeltacht is coming along. I think it's a brilliant concept that you can bring people together and just like we're doing today, speak a few words here and there and pick it up. Agus
What did you say?
Cén scéal eile.
Oh, well, I'm thinking to buy Scott parts son Morhule by Morhule o Tivna Kelia go Tivna Kelia. So agus by Falter Road Chuck agus by say an Trio Lord Martha. Shin Velia Porta Dogak with St. Pat's for all. Agus Glockman parts and some Porogin.
That's the 3rd of March. You have an event.
That'll be in we're actually partaking in an event, and so that's the St. Pat's for All parade, and that will be at we'll meet around 12 o'clock at 43rd Street and Skillman Avenue.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we'll march from there. We'll march from Sunnyside to Woodside, and we'll probably end up in the Beer Keeper again because that's where it ends up. So
that's where I met you. That's not a bad place. So the march is on the 3rd. The march is on the 3rd of March. Okay, it's 2 marches. And you're going from 43rd on Skillman Avenue all the way out to...
Yes. And if you want to march, if you want to watch the parade for a while and then jump in and join us, that's fine. Sometimes I see friends and neighbors and I pull them in.
No,
so
I've been there before. I'm very familiar with it.
So it's a fun parade. I think of it's more like a block party that moves. That's what I think of it.
Well, that's a good way to describe it. Yes, indeed. And we hope that the weather,
by Hampshire,
will be hot, yeah. Not for Gaholin, August, Bejer Gohintach, Sin Scale. My guest today is Daithí Mac Lochlainn. We are talking a little bilingual today for if you just joined my podcast. It's good to talk. Be conchigum agus conchigot shin on scale. So what else can we talk? We did discuss Douglas Hyde, who was the founder of Conra na Gaeilge, buried in French Park, County Roscommon, a sleepy little town there. I shouldn't say that because I lived there for 5-6 years, and it was a nice place actually, and people are very friendly. Little villages up in
Della agan in Shin agus niggin by Morhiul Ella in Brooklyn, agus by in Park Slope. So we'll meet again at 12 o'clock, and that'll be on 13th Street and Prospect Park. That'll be on St. Patrick's Day itself on the Sunday. So so if people want to go to, there's a 10:30 mass over at Holy Name. That'll be in English, but then we'll get together around soon after that, and we'll march around Park Slope.
Okay. All right. I'm actually familiar with some of the churches out in Daithí Mac Lochlainn, Daithí Mac Lochlainn. You have the Queen of Angels there. I think it's a big, huge church. I've been there for memorials and masses. Not that I'm a huge churchgoer, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Agus by pop-up Gaeltacht to Ella Agan and Vishahuan. There'll be another pop-up Gaeltacht next month, but that will be that will really precede the there's a concert by I don't know if people have heard of it, it's an Irish language rap group called Kneecap, and they're from Belfast. And
I've heard,
and they'll be I'm sorry, they'll be performing on the 23rd at a place called Warsaw in Brooklyn. So we haven't decided where we're going to meet, but we're going to meet. If you keep in touch with us, we'll let people know. We're going to meet just prior to that, maybe right before that starts. Certainly, yes.
Came fall. Why not? This podcast will be going out in March. You will get events that are coming up in March. Keep in touch with the Irish Examiner, USA.com, for all the events coming up in March. Not just pop-up Gaeltacht, but everything else. The Mayo Society are having their big dinner dance on. My sister is going to be the Woman of the Year, and Jimmy McMahon is going to be the Man of the Year. And tickets will be available, I'm sure, soon for the dinners. I think it's only about $125. All you can eat and all you can drink. So forget about the hunger. Okay? The Nyart galore, Bia, which is food, and Jock, which is drink. So anything else we can add?
No, it's just maybe one other thing I would like. Maybe I could talk about what I did last weekend, which I was a teacher at Daithí na Gaelga's summer weekend course. They do an immersion course. So anyone could just look up Daithí. It's DALTAI.com, and we'll have our next immersion course in May. So that's really worth it. If you have no Irish at all, just come and we'll find the class that's perfect for you. If you're a fluent speaker, there's a class that's for you, and everyone in between. We have classes for everybody.
The word Daithí means children.
Students.
So it's like
students. So it's Daithí na Gaelga, so students of the Irish language, and it would be Daithí.com. And again, everyone's welcome to partake of that. That's a good website.
Well, I should know that because I was one of those Daithí myself.
Yes, yeah. Well, there's two words for student. One word is Dalta, so Daithí would be the plural, and the other one is Mac Lochlainn, which means the son of learning, because people in the old days, when you learn, what people would do, the wealthier people, they would have their children fostered by a bard or by a teacher, and he would live with the teacher, and so that student was that teacher's son, but not a son by blood, but a son by learning. So that's where the term Mac Lochlainn came from. But we use the word Daithí, which is another word for student.
Okay. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because that tradition still goes on, and for years in Ireland, the kids from Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, and the people there would send their children to the Gaeltacht, to say Connemara, Rosdua, Carrow Haig. My brother is a teacher, was principal, and he retired recently. And they would have summer classes. And those summer classes were extremely good for students that would be going on to third level.
Sure.
Because as you know, in third level, for certain jobs, the Gaeilge, the Irish language, is a requirement. If you want to become a policeman or a civil servant, you have to have Gaeilge. Now, the lady of the house that ran the where you stayed, got fed, like an Airbnb, okay? But it was an Airbnb with certain rules. No English was allowed whatsoever. So the Daithí had to speak Os Gaeilge all the time, or the Bananchi, meaning the woman of the house, would put them on the bus and send them back to Dublin. And that's not, you don't want that to happen.
Certainly.
If you're a student. So the Bananchi, that still goes on, and people really enjoy the experience. When I had my restaurant in Ireland, Mother Hubbard's, I sponsored 20 scholarships
Wow.
to Colossia in Connemara. It was run by a guy called Paul O'Feel. And I had Michael D. Higgins, who taught me in college too, to present the certificates for the students to go from County Meath, County Kildare. And I'm so proud to have done that, because a lot of the students wrote back to me and thanked me for the wonderful experience they had to learn Irish and what was new to them. If you leave Meath or Westmeath and you are coming from the wealth of Ireland, and now you go to see what happens in the Gaeltacht.
And that's the thing, I find the more you look at Irish, you find it's not that difficult to learn. It's very difficult to practice. So it's to find another speaker, and this is why we have pop-up Gaeltachty. This is why we do the Daithí Gaelga summer courses. We always try to keep some sort of contact with each other so we have a chance to speak Irish.
Well, I completely agree with you. Like the phrase goes, like, broken Irish is better than no Irish.
Mm-hmm.
So Gaelga Brista means broken Irish. So Gaelga Brista is better than no Irish. And so if people try and practice,
and I tell my students, I have a class I teach every Tuesday, and I also teach at Daithí Gaelga, and I always tell my students, learn your irregular verbs, because believe it or not, in Irish there are only 11 or 12. It depends on what whether the hearing is one word or two. But there's very few irregular verbs, and once you learn the irregular verbs, you'll be conversant in Irish, and then soon after that, if you keep working at it, you'll be fluent. So it's really important to learn that. That's right, and you just add more words to it. It's not. It's anything is a challenge. Anything is requires work, but Irish is not impossible. It's not. It's
not possible.
Yeah, it can be done.
A number of years ago, I had some students here from Turkey, and they arrived in New York. They wanted to learn how to speak English, and in the apartment, I was managing an Airbnb for somebody. They put stickers on each item in the room. So for a picture, they would put picture.
I've heard
that's picture. Toaster, refrigerator, the stove. So they put stickers on all the items. So now you have a vocabulary of words that you could have a conversation about. Os Gaeilge. So that's another way for your students to, maybe when they go home and on the refrigerator, put a sticker for the Irish for refrigerator, the stove, the toaster, the kettle, glenya, glasses, and all of these words. And if they can get themselves up to, maybe in a week, 20 words, a couple of weeks, maybe add another 10 or 20. And then before you know it, you might have 100 words in your vocabulary. And as you said, add the verbs to it. And now you're ready.
Indeed. And you can, and when you're first learning, you can code switch. If you don't know the Irish word, you can say the English word. But if you keep the basic sentence structure, you'll get it eventually.
So that's what I mean. So let's say Kincha. If I'm saying to you, indeed, and if I say Kincha, that means for sure. Kincha means of course, indeed. So the translation doesn't have to be like a direct translation. Kincha, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And one word can be the translation for two words.
Yes. Kerkelord,
that means very well, very good. So I think we'll move on, and I'll get you back maybe in a few months to talk a little bit more. We can do something. We can expand on our topic today and see what events we have coming up, okay?
Okay,
so I usually give a plug out to The Mayo Society has their dance March 9th. The IBO, Irish organisation here in New York, which is a networking group, they have 4 events every month, and that's worth checking out for my listeners. And tune in to my other podcasts that deal with real estate, sports, brain cancer, brain surgery, all kinds of topics. So I'm going to say Slán,
Go
the
on.
Fól, the Daithí, Agus Sin Scéal.
Okay,
Slán
Slán.